It is official. MLS has made a massive, massive change for the 2027 season, or I guess 2027 season, I believe. Let me just double check. Hold on. Let me see if I have this right. For 27-28, MLS will be switching up and going with a summer to spring season format that aligns with the European leagues. It is a historic evolution, as they put it on their site, in the league's competition calendar. This is definitely a massive, massive change for the league. Now, obviously, there are pros and cons. There are people who are going to be thrilled, there are people who are going to be upset, and it's going to be for a whole bunch of different reasons. But the league has decided they are making this switch because it's going to line up both transfer windows for player movement, as well as, of course, international breaks. So you're not really having these international breaks within the MLS season, which happens obviously all the time because it basically aligns with the other leagues. So, and of course, there are some who's going to say, hey, this is just the MLS being desperate to be seen as relevant when you compare it to the other leagues, and that they're basically torching their North American fan base, the ones that show up and watch and pay for tickets and watch these games, because they want that respect. And of course, they say, I saw one post where I think it said like the Euro snobs will be thrilled with this, but actual European fans aren't going to care because you know what? They're not really watching MLS anyway. And most US and Canadian sports fans are basically saying are just kind of going to ignore this, but it definitely is going to align with the world windows in terms of the transfer windows, which is a good thing. And I believe our playoffs won't compete with the NFL and college football, which is also a good thing. But the flip side of that is now, instead of, for the most part, competing with baseball in the summer, now you've got everything, all the other major sports, college as well, for a lot of the season. Now, there is a lot of overlap between the two seasons because you have the international break, which we'll get to in a minute. But still, now you're competing with football, college and pro. And we know those are both massively popular. You've got basketball, college and pro. You've got the NHL. And a lot of people say, oh, well, yeah, but they're not soccer. But look, in America, a lot of fans are fans of multiple sports. Not all, but a lot, and they have to make choices when they've got a whole lot of different options. So I don't know how well that's going to play with an American fan base. We'll obviously see what happens. But you also have weather. Now, again, there is a lot of overlap, but instead of those games in the summer where all you've got is Major League Baseball and people going out to games, you're looking at middle of the winter weather where you may have to be playing in blizzards in places like Foxborough, and of course Canadian-based teams as well, such as Vancouver and Toronto. So that's going to make it very interesting. It also puts cold weather teams at a huge disadvantage simply when it comes to training, right? And like I mentioned, again, you add that into other sports playing as well, massively popular sports in America. Now, one other positive I want to bring up, because not a lot of people are talking about this, is it does line up more competitively now for CONCACAF Champions League with Liga MX, right? The MLS teams were always at a disadvantage because they're playing Champions League in basically MLS offseason. So these teams aren't, they're not in competitive game shape. They haven't been playing like they have in Liga MX, so that makes a big difference. So that is huge for MLS teams when it comes to CONCACAF Champions Cup. Both leagues now will be in full season, mid-season form, so to speak, for the final and the start of the tournament. So that is absolutely huge. But again, going from baseball to everyone, college and pro, massive uh, fan bases for college and pro football. That's different. And you have 4 months of basically warm weather where it's great to go out to games and watch. And now, maybe, like I said, there is a lot of overlap, but now you have maybe 2.5 months of warm, and now you get a lot of cold. And those cold teams, again, like I mentioned with training, that's going to be a big difference. And then the other one that really concerns me, again, for American fans now, if you're a fan of EuroLeague and you watch them as well, and there's maybe more of your emphasis, but you also support MLS because you're, in America, you're used to that international break. American sports fans, not so much. And yes, there are American fans who only watch MLS and pay attention to MLS and don't really follow the Euro leagues. That is going to be quite an adjustment to have a 2-month break in the middle of the season. I gotta say, I'm not a fan of it. Just, again, growing up here and watching these other sports, could you imagine a 2-month break in the middle of the NFL, a 2-month break in the middle of the NBA season? That's a lot of crazy talk. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out with American fans in MLS. But obviously, this is a historic change for the league. Massive, massive, massive change. I can't emphasize that enough. How much this is going to change things going forward. And again, we talked a lot of pros and cons. We have no idea really how it's going to play out with the fan base. That's going to be very, very interesting. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Appreciate you checking out the video as always. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, help us keep growing, and I will talk to you later.